I got a notification this meeting is being live streamed.
I don't think I've ever done this before.
Yeah, it's only my second time, my first time running the show, so we'll see how I do. But anyway, how you doing tonight, Mr. Moore? How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing fine. I'm chilling. I just took a shower. So yeah, I'm coming.
I'm very jealous. I'm very, very jealous. I looking at your posters back there, that Do the Right Thing book. I don't know, you probably were like I think I'm a good decade older, but that Do the Right Thing book when the movie came out was one of the first and only times that you could get a diary from a writer and writer director of a thing from conception all the way through to like the premiere. And it was such an educational Bible back then. You know what I mean? There was so little resources. It was like, to me, it was really the origin of screenwriter Twitter. It was the first time you get gossip and he's
Right.
working ideas. Anyway, I just want to ask you something that I think a lot of people are going to want to know, because you're a very interesting figure out there industry wise, social media wise. It's like, you're somebody that's been really fun to watch. How did you get that first big important read? Like, how did you get somebody to pay attention to you and get that read that mattered?
Oh wow. I'm trying to
Going
think.
all the way back.
Yeah, shit. Well, so I had written a pilot, like I've written a sample around like 2013, maybe 2013, 2012, somewhere around there. It was around the time that I was trying to get into the programs and whatnot. And Lena Waite, she read the pilot, and she threw this big table read for me, invited all these executives like to come and watch it and give me notes, and like known like actors and actresses. So it was like, I mean, that was kind of like the first time like somebody like put something on like that in like a bit of a scale for me. And I mean, that was really helpful. I got to meet a lot of executives there and made a lot of fans. And I feel like I was probably staffed like the year after, something like that.
I never met anybody in this business. I've been doing this job for like 25 years. And it's like, I never met anybody in 25 years who didn't get in because somebody somewhere opened a door and gave them a hand at some point.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I tell people all the time, like, because people are like, I'm gonna be an indie and I'm gonna do this on my own. And like, even then, like, you still need somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is just one of those businesses where you really can't do it alone. At least I can't. So, yeah, you do need people to be fans of yours, to believe in you, to help you kind of get that first sort of step in the door though.
Yeah, or you need somebody with 4.5 million in cash.
Exactly.
So if you could go back to 2010, 2012, to your early days of starting out in this thing, what would you tell yourself now to do different from what you did?
Like, do not quit staying up late. Like, I would tell them, quit staying up late. I was one of those people who would like be like, oh my God, like I have to write, I have to do this. And like, I worked graveyard also during that time. So maybe that was part of it. But like, even once I did get my first job, like I was so nervous about like not getting hired again. So like I would just do the most and writing crazy hours of the night and like not, neglecting myself. So like I would definitely tell, that 30-year-old to like, hey, you're getting older. You need to relax, dude. Get some sleep.
What do you think about Billy Wilder's like a big hero of mine, and he had this quote one time about writing, and he said that you can only strike the matchbook cover so many times before the match won't strike again, and it's like, do you believe it like that, or do you think it's endless?
I
What do you
don't,
think
I
you got?
mean, listen, I am probably just a naturally skeptical person. So like, I'm like, this could all, I feel like I've gotten more comfortable as I've sort of worked my way up and as I've been doing this for a while to say, maybe this is going to be a definite long-term career, but it's just one of those things where you've either seen somebody or you've heard stories and you're like, "Ah, like that could be me." You know what I'm saying? So I just try to like keep my head down a little bit, talk shit when I need to, and like do my work. You know what I'm saying? And then hopefully that'll take me where I need to go.
I always felt like doing the work usually ends up being the main thing that matters, especially in a room. Like if you deliver it there, you make people happy. The other stuff, it's just, it seems to matter. It seems to
Right,
fall by the wayside.
right.
Uh, so who are your heroes? Like, you know?
Oh, wow. I don't, you know what? People ask me stuff like this, and I guess I always struggle. I'm not
Yeah,
like
me too. I'm not good
not
at
like
pulling
a
these
big like
lists.
hero mentor guy. I mean,
Yeah.
you can see like on my wall there, two posters by the same guy. I've been a Spike Lee fan since I saw Do the Right Thing was my first film I saw. I was like, my dad used to take me to this theater in Houston. It was the only theater in Houston. It was an independent theater called the Greenway Theater. And it was not right next to the Summit, which is now a church, but it was right next to a basketball arena before. And he would take me there because he knew like I was really interested in film and television, like at a young age. And I would like watch Siskel and Ebert and like tell them like the movies that they said were good. So every Monday, he and my mother were off. So we would go out to eat, we would go to Greenway, like watch some obscure movie or something that wasn't playing everywhere. And Do the Right Thing was one of those movies, and it kind of like it was one of the first times I like saw my dad like get like really emotional.
Mhm.
And then when we saw Malcolm X together, that was like the first time I saw my dad like cry. And I was,
Wow.
whoa, like he was really moved by this, you know what I'm saying? And so like I will say, he's definitely like Spike is definitely like a creative hero of mine. I do like a person that speaks their mind. Sometimes it may go over right, sometimes it may not, but like I like a person that has a little if as you can tell, from my Twitter my Twitter account. So I
Yeah.
don't mind that. I actually admire that. So he's probably one. Um Outside of that, it's probably like family members, like my grandfather. It's sort of stuff like that. Like I
Yeah.
really, look up to my grandfather. He recently passed away. He couldn't read. And so like I would go to the store I would stay with them in the summer because my parents would work. And like I would go to the store, he'd give me, a quarter, or was it 50 cents at the time? One of them was when newspapers were cheap and when
Right.
people actually read them. And I would go there and like we would hang out and I would read in the newspaper and stuff like that. So it was like, and I would like make up shit, and do my
Yep.
story time with him. So it was like a really good time. So like it's more stuff like that. Like I got to see, people who really had to like work really hard to get the things that they wanted, and some of and other things fell by the wayside because of that. And I really admired how both my grandfathers just sort of moved through the world, and they just are like really actually like good guys. So like if I had to say like heroes, it's kind of like those two dudes.
That's the best kind to have because they're there to actually guide you instead of your vision of who they are. You know what I mean? Somebody really in your life is always really nice. Um, so how do you know when you got something that you're gonna write? Like how do you get how do you refine your ideas? How do you judge them? Do you just go with what you got? Like what do are you a guy with a ton of ideas and you wade through them? Like
I'm not.
do you have a
I
mode?
always say like I'm not an idea generator. Like I wish I was. Like I hear people that like I'm like, oh my god, like how? And I'm also not like a big hook person either.
Mhm.
So it actually sometimes makes things difficult to pitch when you're doing that development stage and trying to like crystallize stuff into something that's super sellable. But I mean, to me, I have a little bit of a process. Typically, I'll come up with a couple of ideas. Usually, they'll always, whether it's about my actual life, it typically it's come from something that's happening there, and I can spin that into whatever I want to, crime, YA, or whatnot. But as far as like development goes, like typically I'm actually more of I like a structure in that way. So I'll come up with ideas. My manager and we are actually, very tight. We
Mhm.
speak creatively. So typically I'll come up with stuff. I'll sort of say like, hey, these are some things I'm thinking about, just to kind of gauge, what he thinks. Not that it'll sort of deter or like make me want to do something, but just to sort of get a gauge and what that is. And then I'll, work on it on my own, sort of come up with my characters. and either I'll just do it sort of like a basic kind of like document, I'll just write out a pitch and just like, well, this is if I meet up with a production company or whatever, like I have this document ready. And so I'll get that and I'll probably work on that for, a month or so just to like fine tune that and get that right, figure out like what my world is. And then, and then I kind of dive in it from there. I've been like lately, I've been more into like crime and legal stuff, but like, and just sort of trying to look at crime through sort of like different lenses and different types of characters that aren't necessarily police officers and whatnot. So, which is, my dad was a police officer. So like, it's always something that's kind of been in my head and I've written on a few, but yeah, so I mean, that's kind of how it is. I'll just kind of like come up with something or I'll read something that'll spark something. I mean, that's sort of what happened with this idea that I'm working on now. Like some controversy happened. I sort of did a deep dive into everything that was happening. I was like, whoa, this is going on. This is going on. Like, this would be really cool, or this would be really interesting to sort of like turn into something, story-wise. And so it'll be stuff like that. I do a lot of reading. And so typically it's, something from the newspaper, some weird thing that kind of popped in some case that happened in some small town. It'll be something like that.
Yeah, you don't bump into a lot of writers who are like, I don't like to read, or I never read anything or anything like that. We're usually like, and now I'm trapped in this thing where I buy the hard book and I buy the Kindle version. You know what I mean? And it's I'm stuck in a trap.
So I do both. The thing is, I need to have the hard copy. Like I need to have that because I need to highlight. And I know you can do it like if you buy on iBooks, but it's just not the same because it's not, I can't just like thumb through the pages and go and like find like 68 like I would. So I typically need something like tangible that I can grab. So I'm usually like, I'm gonna buy the thing from a bookstore. I'm gonna go and get it off, Amazon or something. And then I'll just have the iBook there. Like if I'm lazy and I just want to thumb through something, or if I need to search, and so I can search like really quick. But other than that, I do prefer having a hard copy of the book. And I can't do audiobooks at all. My mind does not work. It don't work like that. Like it doesn't. I will zone out and I'll be like, oh, this dude was talking for 5 minutes. I have no idea what this person just said. So
every time I've ever tried, I've started it like 17 times and then be like, this is never gonna happen, the same way. Just like start working on a story or something, you know what I mean? And it's like you don't even hear what they're saying.
My mind will just drift off, and so it's just it doesn't work. And I've tried it. Like one time I remember I tried to I had like an interview for a staffing job, and like it was in like 2 days, and I had to read a book, and they were like, well, you can just do the audio book. And I was like, all right, I'll do that. And like I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to read this book in 2 days because there's no way I'm gonna get through this this way. And honestly, to me, it's just better. I can engage with the material in a way that I can't if I'm just listening to it, because typically if I'm hearing something, if it catches me, especially if I'm doing it for work, I want to be able to write or jot that down. And if I'm focusing and listening and having to stop and pause, that's too much work for me. And that's too much work for me, at least.
Yeah, I underline, I star stuff that's like what you really need, circle things around. It's like, those poor books. I read the Coppola. I've tried it a couple of times. I guess Coppola, when he was doing The Godfather, bought like 2 copies of the book and cut up all the pages into a loose leaf notebook and like pasted them in. So you'd have like each page. That's like, I get that. Like that would work for me. So you think you could ever really move away? I saw I've seen some of your tweets
Let
lately.
me tell you, man, listen.
This is tied into the future of the industry.
I've been out here for 18 years, right? I've been out here for 18 years. I have been lucky enough, fortunate enough to be able to make a life and a career out here for myself. At the same time, like there's just certain things, whether it be food, men, other stuff that is just not plentiful enough. At least what I like is not plentiful enough here. And I'm like, is this the place that I really just want to like make my forever place? So I haven't again, I'm in no rush to move. I mean, we're on strike, so like I'm not going anywhere till I know paychecks are coming in. So
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. But like, you know, I love Atlanta. I went to school there. I'm there like 4 or 5 times a year. Um, and you know, it is something that I think about. I go back and forth, you know, and so especially as I'm getting older, I'll be 44 in November. So like I'm like, you know, is this the place where I really want to stay? You know,
Yeah.
so I'm there, and like you know how it is, especially like in TV and especially in features, like especially now with the way rooms work with Zoom, with hybrids, like you can kind of do whatever you want. And a couple of my good friends have moved from LA. One moved to Atlanta, one moved to Washington, you know, and so like and they're showrunners, you know, and so you know, there's always ways, you know, if you need to be in a room, if I need to be in a room in LA, I can always do that. So, you know, I'm just trying to figure out like what I want to do. Like, do I really want to leave? I would, I don't know, but it's definitely has been a consideration for the last like year or so. I used to discourage people from leaving and like scare them, like you should not leave because blah 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 blah. But
Yep.
I feel like, you know, I've done a good nice amount out here, and I'll continue to, you know, work or whatever. But it's like, where do I actually really want to live? And so that's
Yeah.
sort of, you know, I haven't figured it out yet. I'm gonna give myself like a year or so, you know. Who
Yeah.
knows? I
We
may
don't know
meet
what to
some
do.
like rich man that makes me want to stay, you know?
There you go. We'll be on the lookout because that's what we don't know what to do either. It's like, where do you go? Where do you raise kids? You know, we don't know. We
Yeah.
don't know what to do. So many friends and coworkers left during the COVID times.
Yeah.
But what it really brings up to me is it's like, what do you see? Where do you see this thing headed now? Like, I mean, we're obviously we've had like three big wallops to the industry in a row. You know, like there's COVID, there was George Floyd, and all the fallout that came from what ultimately turned out to be another phony reform movement. Felt sincere, felt pretty real at the time. You know what I mean? I bought, this is the first one I bought into in 25 years. And now like multiple strikes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
three massive disruptions. Like, what do you see? I want to talk about what you see for yourself. I want to talk about how you would approach it in this environment if you were just starting out. What do you see the future for you like in this realigned reality of showbiz?
I mean, so you know, while we were on strike, I've been sort of laying low. I realized I hadn't had a vacation since June of 2021. So I was like, okay, Kirk, you should probably sleep and like get some rest and, you know, treat yourself nice. So, you know, I definitely like took a break for a little bit and, you know, went out and did my picketing, continue to do that. And then, you know, the rest I've been sort of focusing on like what I want to do creatively, you know, where I sort of see myself. And so I've actually been probably more in communication with my reps now that we're not working than I have
Yep.
in a while, which is interesting just because, you know, I like to feel like I'm using this time to like do some things that I know because I'm in a room all day, and while you're in a room you're also developing something else that you know that I want to be able to kind of like do some things that I really want to do and not just stuff that people bring to me. So that's been it. And I feel like, you know, as far as like where I see myself as this goes, I mean, it's like, you know, I would, you know, I want to get back to work as soon as possible. I was I was telling somebody when we were out a couple of days ago, I was like, one of the things I realized, you know, while we've been on strike is that I really do enjoy working. Like I really enjoy what I do. And so I've been trying to like do things that sort of give me that feeling, you know.
Yep.
So I've been, you know, really trying to be sort of creative, reading books about some things that I really want to sort of get into. You know, I've been after being on set for now, I guess now 8 years now, and I've been sort of like doing a lot of like reading about directing. I have a couple of ideas that I think I want to just sort of like take hold of on my own and see what I can do with those things. So It's mostly that. As far as the industry, I have no fucking idea. I mean, like, I feel like when you look at those, when you look at the proposals and though and the offer and proposal stuff, like you see how far apart the guilds are from these studios. And so I don't like, I think it's a good thing that, strike, that SAG went on strike. I think it does. And as you've said on Twitter, it does help, but like, I don't think that it's like the sort of like, trump card, or I hate saying trump
Yeah.
card,
It's
like,
not a panacea. Like it's not gonna
yeah,
like
it's
cure
not the
everything for
thing,
us.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not, it doesn't fix everything.
Yeah.
And it what it really showed is just how far away we are from a deal.
Yeah.
That's what it showed to me, is that we are on two completely different ends of the spectrum. And so I wonder what it is going to take for, it's particularly these studios to be like, okay, like we make this amount of money. Yes, we have shareholders. Yes, there's, well, like, you know, this is not sustainable. And eventually, if you think about the way these things goes, like now a lot of these independent studios can actually still do work, the bigger studios cannot. And so I think that's going to start to like cause some jealousy and some annoyance. And then when you think about broadcast versus streaming, the needs are completely different. Like broadcast, if you just seen like NBC just like completely like revamp their schedule. And so, which I wasn't surprised, is like they're going to put all the shows that they were going to have, that they were already taping for last year, that were going to come out in the fall. They're going to hold those. They're going to put those. So like all their, Law and Orders and all those things, they're going to come out next year, make sense. And then they're going to put their new shows out, see if they hit. So if they hit, then they'll bring them back for the next year. And that way they have stuff to at least last a year. But like, that's it. And if you think about where we are right now, like if we were like, if this were, regular times, like we would be like shooting episodes, like we would be like, upfronts would have happened, rooms would have started, we would be in the room, a couple of episodes would have already been shot. So like now, every 10 days, broadcast is losing an episode of television. I think that that's something I don't think that people are realizing, is that like, as we get closer and closer into this, we're in July. Like if I think about like when I started on Crime, or when I started on 13 Reasons, both were summer shows, like we were, we started in the room for a couple of weeks, for about a month and a half in like June. And then by mid-July, we were already shooting because the pilot was done and we were already into episodes 2 and 3, getting ready to get this stuff out. So when I think about that, it's like broadcast networks like NBC and ABC and CBS, they have to be thinking like, right now, we would actually be developing programming. We would actually be doing shows right now, and we're not. So, I feel like at some point, the studios have to say to each other, like, well, you don't need what I need. Like, how do we actually like fix this? Because come in a couple of months, like, those broadcast networks are going to be severely behind on what they have to do to get stuff up for the fall. So I'm not sure like how that all like works out and shakes up when the streamers are like, well, we started a room in 2020 and that show is just coming out next year. And just coming out next year.
Yep. Those two different models fascinate me, and I'm dying to go penetrate that, networks model again. Like it's like, to me, when was entertainment profitable? 70s, 80s, 90s broadcast television, selling ads and getting big audiences.
And what's interesting? I was just talking to one of the producers on Damascus, and he was saying, he was talking about how Netflix they're going to start back getting into ads, and they made that announcement. It's like, I mean, ads are what generates money for these companies. And like when subscriptions are only going to go so far. There's only going to be so many subscriptions you can get. Yes, there's a lot of people in this world, but not everybody watches TV. Not everybody cares about it. And so there's only going to be so many subscriptions they can get, and they're going to have to find other avenues to make money. And so I don't see anything wrong with these people hopping on what their version of what a broadcast schedule would look like with advertising, because ultimately, like, that's what's actually going to keep a lot of these companies afloat and actually like keep money coming in. And then we can also like start to find out like how we get paid, you know?
Yes, I read that the owners of NBC at the time made $2 billion in profit off the run of Cheers. Like not the like literal net profits after paying Ted Danson and everybody else, you know?
That's right. Like, why not just take that? Exactly. That just
Right.
makes so much more sense.
It works for everybody, you know. It's like I look at it as the last place where a writer can purely go after generational wealth is like
Right.
broadcast TV, 5-6 seasons times 22. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you were starting right now, you know what I mean? Like if you were just fresh and you were moving to town, or you were living in Atlanta or someplace, and you were in the Zoom reality set in, what do you think? How would you, just not, and I'm not going to hold you down too much, but like, do you have a general idea of how you tackle getting in this moment?
Wow. Oh man. Like in this moment, like while we're on strike, or
Well,
like
no, I mean in the post-strike reality,
reality.
like when
Oh,
it's kosher to step back in, you know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, if wow. I mean, I feel like one, it just always starts with the script. If you don't have a good sample, or two, like you're going nowhere. I always tell people like your script is, as a writer, your script is your business card. It has your name, sometimes your address, it has your number, like it has all the stuff that have been like, you don't need business cards, you need your script. So I feel like, I would always just really start with the script. I mean, I came in through the programs, so I would probably submit to those,
Yeah,
if that were the case. But I think that also, like we've talked about before, I think that one of the things that really helped me out is that I did build a lot of people who um appreciated my work and wanted to support me and introduce me to executives and help me get meetings before I got an agent. And so I think that those things are really important, in terms of getting staff, like knowing who. I was always big into like going on IMDb, researching, like just making sure like you really know like what's going on, who like turnaround in these departments are so quick in these executive departments, but staying up on that, submitting the contest, and then probably still like talking shit on Twitter. And I've gotten a lot of opportunities, oddly enough, from just being on Twitter and people being like, oh, like I like your voice, or like you're funny, or whatever it is. And so
yeah.
I've gotten meetings that way. So I feel
Same
like,
for me. I think
yeah,
it's a
I feel
huge
like
tool.
I probably wouldn't do anything that much different than I was doing before. When I actually like got in, I don't think I would change that much. I mean, the only other thing would be like, would I actually shoot something? And I'm not sure I would want to do that.
Yeah,
And I think that
yeah,
that's the thing that a lot of people who are trying to break in, they sort of like struggle with that. Like, should I shoot something to show like proof of concept and to show what I can do, or should I not? And like, I think that it's a good idea in theory, and for the most part, it can be helpful, especially if you're trying to go the feature route. But
yeah,
like in TV, it's not necessarily the same. But now, like especially with TV, people are getting hired in a lot of different ways. Like they're just not hiring people who are traditional TV writers. We're hiring doctors and lawyers. You populate that room with different personalities and different backgrounds and different ways of thinking, so that you can get, hopefully like a really sort of, well-rounded show and series. So like,
yeah.
I feel like, you know, all that stuff is, I feel like all those things hopefully will, even remain the same, like industry wise, like none of that stuff, I hope that stuff doesn't change. But we've seen with a lot of, it does worry me, like seeing like all of these sort of like inclusion departments, these EI like leaving, and like seeing people already bringing up the fact that they're going to challenge certain hiring practices, to build diversity already, based off of the Supreme Court case. And so we're already like seeing how people are going to like make this political. And like I feel like now everything is made political, even when it's just not fucking necessary. So, I think this is just going to be another one of those things, sadly enough.
My wife's standing back there applauding at that one. She's just so against the constant politicization. That's a rough one to say when you're like for everything. She just that worries her all the time. All right, I don't want to take up too much of your time, and God knows YouTube likes to keep their stuff short. But I just want to ask you, and not in a sticky way or anything, but what happened to Damascus? Like from your point of view, like what happened there?
So listen, it was in the trades. I can say, listen, we shot the show. We were in post through December. And then, we get a call that's like, hey, we're scrapping several shows to save money. Like that was literally it.
Wow.
And there are other things that involved that are like super crazy, but like it was basically, we're bleeding money. We're not gonna, they shot season 2 of 61st Street, completely scrapped it. Now that's on, I forgot where 61st Street is at now. CW, which is really interesting. But they scrapped a lot of shows, stopped stuff. And so we just happen to be one of those shows that they were not going to move forward with. So it was just one of those things, especially after WB sort of set the precedent for, scrapping shows that had already been shot or movies that had already been shot and like done. Like after that precedent was set, then you just saw, Stars got rid of Minx. Like Minx went to Stars. I forgot where it was, but like, they just, other networks just followed suit and they just started getting rid of shows. And we just happened to be one of those casualties. But hopefully, there will be a good announcement. Really, really,
nice.
really,
nice. The future would be good.
This strike is messing stuff up, but like, a home very soon.
That would be good. That would be a happy ending. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Imagine going back 30 or 40 years and talking to one of the studio heads and saying, yeah, they're just going to put it away and not release it. It's like they released Heaven's Gate. They released everything, like nothing was left behind,
it's just a thing of like, a lot of these, without getting too deep in the woods, a lot of these companies are like, well, we spent 100 million, we spent 40 million to make it. And they're like, well, what we don't want to do is spend another 40 million or 100 million to promote it. So they're like, what we can do is just write it off. We actually get a percentage of that back. So now we're not spending an additional 40 or 100 million on P&A. We're actually making some of what we spent back. And then if we sell it, we make the whole thing back if we sell it to somebody else. So it kind of, it's not necessarily like a win-win, but from a business model, it fucking sucks. But like, not that I get why they're doing it, but I understand what they're doing, I should say. Yeah.
Given the opportunity, a certain business bottom line mind could see this as a way to make a quarter. Like what a weird system to find ourselves in at the moment. I just want to ask you last thing, like so all the work, all the tough stuff, all the personal sacrifices, all the stuff, like, is it worth it? You know what I mean?
I love it. I absolutely love my life. I have met, it's one of the reasons why I have a lot of friends in Atlanta from school and family and whatnot, but like what I love about LA in terms of not necessarily the city, but for myself, is that I've been able to cultivate a life, a community, a family for myself out here on my own that's even separate from work. And so like, this is, I'm a Houston boy, but like, this is home. Like, and so like I said, I've been here for 18 years. So I've been here for a long time. And so I feel like, this is one of those places where, people dream of coming. I didn't necessarily know how I was going to get here. But like I told you, like as a fucking kid, I was watching Siskel and Ebert. Like this was always something that I was really passionate about, but I thought I was going to be an actor. So like I did acting. high school, I did college, grad school,
That's
and I was
great.
like, oh, I don't want to act anymore. So, and so,
Stop
yeah,
looking at me.
yeah. So I was like, I don't think I want to do this. But yeah, no, I really feel like, and especially now that I feel like I have really learned like work-life balance and like learned how to really be kind to myself in this industry, which I don't think a lot of people are. And so I feel like, you know, this career, this whatever could be a complete disaster, even if I was successful. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like I've now, especially coming from where I started when I like was trying to work on 2 shows at the same time because I was afraid I was going to get in trouble, and that landed me in the hospital. Like I'm not like doing like those type of things. Like I'm not doing those things anymore. I'm not overextending myself. I feel like, you know, we talked about a little earlier, like, do you think like, is this going to end? And like, I don't know, but I'm going to make sure I work to make sure it does not. And that's kind of all I can do. And so I'm going to continue to do that, because I still feel like there's definitely a lot more things that like I really want to do, you
Yep.
know? And so after like you know, writing and show running Damascus and like literally being on set and being responsible for kind of everything, like and seeing like what a task that is, and it was not easy, but it did show me that like, oh shit, like I can like really do this, you know what I'm
Yep.
saying? Like, you know, and I was probably the least tenure or the least years of person that interviewed for that job, but for some reason I got it. And so like I feel like now that I've learned that like there's definitely things. I mean, you've run a couple of rooms, so you know, like there's like a joy in just like hiring writers. Like it was so much fun to me to like read scripts and to like be able to like hire and like be on the other side and talk to people and engage with them about their work and why they want to work with me. So like those kind of things are like you learn so much about people, and I love that. So yeah, no, very worth it. Very, very.
Yeah, I just the worst day of doing this was better than my previous day jobs as like a pastry chef or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
Listen,
like
I worked at a psychic company the day before I started on American Crime. So like I definitely you know, I'll take writing over, you know, work on psychics.
That's awesome. You probably talked to my grandma. So, so anyway, so thanks for that. She really needed to hear that. Anyway, listen, Kirk, I really appreciate you being here. Like this has been a lot of fun. I just think, you know, you're somebody that a lot of people look up to and follow the adventures of as like a path that they try to follow along with themselves, and how accessible you've made yourself and how real you are out there with that stuff, ups and downs. You know what I mean? I think really
Yeah.
like makes a difference for people. Like it really lets them know what's going on. So a really grateful community out there of writers. Like I think it definitely wants to say thanks.
I appreciate it all. I fucking love this. So I enjoyed it. And I just realized I was like, there were so many things I didn't understand. Like when I got in here, and I'm like, why didn't people tell me this? So I'm like, let me just tell people. Like this shouldn't be a big secret, you know? And so like that's just kind of how I see stuff. And I want to sort of be as transparent as possible as we can, you know, about what we do, because there's clearly, as we've seen with the strike, a ton of confusion. So
Yes, and hopefully a few people will emerge from the strike as sort of like good beacons to follow toward the future and stuff like that too. You
yeah,
can see people emerging like as
yeah,
like sort of future shapers and everything.
yes,
So
exactly.
yeah, I love it. And just as I think we all got into this because we're fans, and it's like, why would you ever root against anything that would give us the best TV and the best movies? So like
Exactly.
just yeah. Like looking forward to sitting back and watching more stuff. All
Cool.
right. Well, thank you a bunch.
Thanks, Jeff.
Really